Rev up your engines! All right, today we're going to talk about Alfa Romeos. A pair of twin brothers bought this thing. I told them they were crazy, but they admitted they were crazy, but they loved the car. They paid $29,000 for it. Originally, it was like $55, $56. So they got a good deal. Plus, it came from Texas. It's in Jersey now, but it came from Texas. It doesn't have any rust on it. It could have been worse. They could have bought a Fiat. In the United States, there's 300-something Fiat dealers left. And last year, they sold less than 600 Fiats, meaning that each one didn't even sell 2 cars. I don't know how they stay in business. They're going to be gone. Probably like a bunch of the electric cars. They'll probably go away too when nobody buys the stupid things over time. But Alfa Romeo, they sold maybe 13,000, 14,000 cars last year. Not that many cars. They got like 180 dealers or something. It's a very limited thing, like it's always been. But you got to understand one thing about this Alfa. It's got a German automatic transmission in it. It's a ZF 8-speed. One of the best transmissions out there. So, the one thing that's the absolute worst on any Italian car ever made were their horrible automatic transmissions. Because, of course, the Italians, hey, speed, we want to go fast. And they got standard trannies, manual, and the real race ones. The guy that really want to drive them around want the manual transmissions. And their automatic transmissions, including Fiat and Alfa, they're absolute garbage. This is a ZF. It is an excellent transmission. They sell like 3.5 million of those trannies worldwide. Some of the Jeeps have them. You see them all over the place. And they are excellent transmissions. So you can take that off your checklist. You don't have to worry that it's a crappy Italian transmission. It's made by Germans. Under the hood of this one, it's a 4-cylinder engine. Now, it's also turbocharged. You see, there's a lot of working room on it. And believe you me, if you're going to buy one of these things, don't mess with the V6 engines. They're terrible. They fall apart. These 4-cylinder engines, if you baby them, now these guys really baby it. They just changed the oil at like 1,300 miles. They are taking care of this thing. They're really taking care of it. And they're not driving it much. They said maybe 3,000 miles a year. And in that case, hey, it could last some time because it doesn't have that many miles on it yet. Just like the Slingshot, it's a sometimes driver, right? You don't buy this thing and drive it 30,000 miles a year, right? And you don't buy the Alfa and drive it 30,000 miles a year either, unless you want endless money pit bills. Things will start breaking. Now the tranny won't because it's well made. The engine certainly would. And to give you an example, this headlight went back. It worked, but that automatic following didn't work. They had a warning light. Now, these guys are smart. They paid for this extended warranty. They didn't want to fix it, but they went to another place, and they got to fix it, okay? So replacing this headlight, $2,300. And this isn't like my wife's Matrix, where you could go aftermarket, get a pair of beautiful ones for $60, and look the same, you know? These things are expensive. Plus, they had to wait a month for it to come from Italy. I guess it was on a slow boat from Italy. Italian car, so it's a good-looking car. They always make good-looking stuff. And as you can see inside, of course, it's got leather seats, nice interior. You know, it's a beautiful looking car. There's no arguing that. A lot of room in the back seat. It's got a push button start, so let's check it out. No, he hasn't messed with the exhaust, so it's a pretty tame exhaust. I have the ZF 8-speed automatic. Of course, it's got the giant paddle shifters too, if you want to shift it yourself. And being a ZF Austrian transmission, they shift great with those paddle shifters. It's not like some of these American ones that you shift them, you wait, there's a lag, they don't accelerate. This is just like a standard transmission. It shifts quick. If you want to play around with the shifting or you want to leave it the way it is, there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. It's a 4-cylinder engine, but since it's got the turbocharger on it, it puts out 280 horsepower and 306 pound-feet of torque. So, it's a very zippy little 4-cylinder engine. It goes 0 to 60 in 5.4 seconds. So, it's got plenty of oomph. Now, that does it in 4.9, but you don't get doors or anything. Plus, here's the funny thing. It gets better gas mileage than this thing does. You got 29 miles a gallon driving from Jersey to Rhode Island here, right? And they're going 75 miles an hour, all right? If I drove that Slingshot 75 miles an hour, I have 16 miles a gallon. I'm not making this up. And if you rev it up high, it gets about 4. It's not a gas mileage machine. It's a toy for driving around. And they actually paid about $10,000 less than this. So, really, it wasn't that expensive. The thing you got to worry about Italian cars is the maintenance. And this is so low mileage. This reminds me of the Audi I shot a couple years ago, where the guy went out and bought a used V6 diesel Audi, right? And they are extremely expensive to maintain. But he bought it with like 20,000 miles on it, and his friend that he went to high school with was an Audi mechanic who only charged 50 bucks an hour to work on a car in a weekend. If you're gonna take a gamble like that and you're not putting many miles on, think about buying one of these if you really wanted to. But if you did, everybody knows I don't like car warranties. You really probably would have to buy one with this thing with the headlights, 2,300 bucks. When things break, man, it is going to be expensive. And, of course, the other thing is there aren't that many guys who really know how to work on these things. You know, there's only a certain amount of dealerships out there. They've been to some of the dealerships where they treat you, they're such snobs, you're like, ew, it's beneath us to change your oil, you know? I'm going to be changing fluids on this thing. Transmission fluid, differential fluid, and they bought the fluids and parts. They bought the fluids at the dealer, and it was 877 bucks for this tiny amount of parts. So, realize it's going to cost you a fortune if you have somebody else doing the work. That's still 877 bucks for the fluids and the parts you need to do it. So, they are not cheap cars to maintain by any stretch of the imagination. Like I say, hardly anybody really knows how to work on these things. They just don't. It's such a small market that they have on them. I mean, I see Fiat, obviously they're going to pull out of the United States. I mean, 300-something dealers and they sold 500 cars last year. These, they sold thousands of them. And there's about half the amount of dealers for Alfa Romeos. There's always a market for luxury cars. Certain people like them. They like Italian cars. Alfa Romeo's been going by the skin of their teeth for decades, and they're still going, you know? They didn't say whether they're going to make electric cars or not, but I'm sure they'll probably make electric cars like everybody else, jump on the bandwagon. But let me tell you something. The last thing in the world I'd buy would be an Italian electric car. That's their downfall, their electric systems. And if they're completely electrical, I wouldn't be buying one, I'll tell you that. Now here's the trunk. It opens, but when we push the button to close it, as you can see, we will watch it. It's not going to close it the whole way. See the gap? And when he's driving, it tells him the trunk isn't closed. So you just manually pick it up and push it down, and then it's closed. For all this money, it should work, but then again, it is an Italian car. It's going to have quirks, right? Hey, we're going to tempt fate here. We are going to scan this thing to see what it's like electronically. Right, scan tool's doing its thing. Trying to auto-detect it. Unable. Yeah. Well, unfortunately, this can't connect because the data link connector's kind of broken here, so we're going to try a scan tool, see if we can fit one in there. I gotta be real careful because that plug is wiggly, but I finally got this one to work because it's got a smaller plug. You can see there's no powertrain or freeze frame. So let's go to enhanced data. Alfa Romeo enhanced data. Enter it. Yes, it knows what it is. 4-cylinder, 2-liter. And here we go. Now it's got a code for driver's door switch. It's ajar. Well, it is. What do you know, That's the only problem it's found. Got a lot of data. Okay, we'll start her up. And here we go. Short-term fuel trim is 0%, which is perfect. Ignition timing's good. Mass airflow sensor's good. And the equivalence ratio isn't bad. 1 is perfect. This is 1.002, then 0.9917. So it's actually running quite well. Close to perfect. Control module voltage is good. Like you say, here's the equivalence ratio. 1.006. It was 1.005. There it goes again. 1.000 is perfect. So it's only off a few thousandths there. Shows you the turbocharged, the wastegate, how it's working. The service reset here. You want the service reset? Isn't that typical? It's Italian. There are no oil reset procedures available for this vehicle. We're going down the road. We'll go like 20 miles an hour, and we'll see what it's like on these bumpy Rhode Island roads here. Now, it's an Italian car. It should ride pretty well, and it takes the bumps quite well. You don't feel them much at all. It's got a good suspension system. Now, it's raining today, so we're going to leave it dynamic for traction control. He's a conservative driver. He's not like me. It gets up and goes. Little 4-cylinder engine. Hey, look, this thing goes. You really wouldn't think that it's a 4-cylinder engine, but it is a turbo, and it is that ZF 8-speed. Smooth shifting, great power band, and yet it still gets good gas mileage. You almost got 30 miles a gallon coming in, and that's something for a car that's this fast. So if you were like me and wondering, why do people buy these things? Well, they're really zippy. They handle really well. They're very smooth. There's no arguing that. Right, they are a scream to drive. And as the owner just mentioned, this thing has complete traction in the rain. Hey, it didn't slide or slip at all in the rain. It's been raining for 12 hours here. The roads are soaking wet. It does handle really well. So there you have it. Now, it's a beautiful looking car, like most Italian things are. And since it has a German transmission, shifts like a dream. the little 4-cylinder engine, if you really take care of it, it does have a lot of power in it. It is an Italian car. I would not buy one, but these guys are happy with what they continue taking care of it. Hey, they do live in Jersey though, and there's a lot of thieves there, so they better hide it in the garage. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.